Hi everyone, welcome to game 84. Game 83 is missing from the playlist, but you will hear why in a second when I start the game. This one was very intense, and I would like your thoughts on how to play such aggressive positions and positions with so many tactical opportunities because I struggle to find plans quickly, and I wonder what your approach is. In any case, it was extremely interesting, very tense, and all three results were possible. Let's go to the game.
Hi everyone, Stepan here. Finally, this is game 84. I've been waiting for it for a while. I hope my opponent makes a move. Now you may notice that there is no game 83 in the playlist, and that's because when I was playing my last game, the electricity went out, I got disconnected, obviously my desktop turned off, I had to switch to my phone really quickly, ended up losing the game because everything was confusing, so I basically couldn't record the game. I don't know how the game would have ended had I not had the problems with the electricity, but yeah. In any case, now there's game 83 missing from the playlist, and that's kind of upsetting to me, but there isn't much I can do. Knight bd7 first. Okay, this may be the variation with the early c5. Let's just go e3. So I wanted to also say, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I wish you the best in life and in everything for this year's holidays, and I hope you have a great time with your family. At least get a couple of days off, or at least enjoy yourself, regardless of whether you celebrate it or not. Okay, let's go bishop d3. One more thing, I'm preparing for a tournament that starts on January 3rd. That will be my next over-the-board tournament. And unlike Dubrovnik, which was great, but was 60 plus 30, this is going to be a normal classical tournament, 90 plus 30. It's played in the east of Croatia, in a village, or I think it's a village, called Bošnjaci, next to Županja, which is a small town. So yeah, I've been preparing for that a lot, going over my games and trying to make sure that I don't repeat the same mistakes. Okay, I don't think I'm afraid of knight e4, although there could be bishop b4. So let's go queen c2 for now. If bishop b4, I may consider knight e2, knight g2. Is there c5 on queen c2? Queen c2 c5? Maybe. Queen c2 c5 takes. Knight takes. I don't like that. Although I could throw in bishop takes f6. Okay, let's go knight e2 first. Because in c5, I'm not... My knight on c3 is never attacked multiple times and only defended by a queen and a pawn. I'm slightly worried about c5, but I think it's going to be okay. Also, I don't have to take it. Excuse me. My opponent is 2200. Joined excuse me. Joined 6 days ago and played 48 games in 6 games. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so let's castle. There's no reason not to castle. I'm unaware of this setup for black in the exchange. Queen's Gambit declined. I don't know it. I'm going to try to play for f3, e4. And put pressure on my opponent by breaking the center. Again, c5 is the only slightly concerning move. So maybe I should have gone... Wow. So maybe I should have gone rook c1 now. Okay, now c5 isn't scary, because if I take, my opponent has to take with the bishop, and I can take on f6. So I feel like a3 is a good move, because it gives me b4 with tempo, and a5 isn't playable. I can still play for a minority attack despite having my knight on e2 instead of f3. So let's do that. My opponent wishes to play knight e6, most likely. But if b4 comes, okay, now I'm definitely playing b4. Why wouldn't I? Because if I go b5, then the minority attack has already succeeded. And if my opponent goes a6, I could go rook b1, a4, b5. Okay. Should I go rook b1? If I go rook b1 and my opponent goes b5, then knight c1, knight b3 becomes an option. I could also go knight a4 here, but I don't really want to. Okay, I'm playing rook b1. I wonder what my opponent's gonna do, because if I go a4, b5, I'll be really happy, especially since my opponent's king is still stuck on e8. And I'm kind of happy that I haven't used the tempo on queen c2. Normally I have my queen on c2 in the exchange variation, but it's not always useful. And I'm kind of mixing plans here. Usually when you play knight e2, you go f3, e4, but since my opponent's queen was on a5, it seemed reasonable to go for b4. Okay, I'm not sure where this bishop is going. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the knight's doing on e6. I saw that my opponent was about to do that, but maybe it would have been more prudent to play knight g6. Because now the bishop... I don't know. I mean, I don't see a way for that bishop to become active unless the knight moves. I doubt that my opponent can do something on the light squares on the queen side with this pawn chain. I think strategically this may have been a mistake. Knight g6 was perhaps better, but... Okay. I'm getting slightly scared, but only because I'm under pressure. I don't think g5 is a good idea at all. Looks extremely risky to do that with your king on e8. Okay. So, I believe h4 is the best move, but if my opponent moves away the f6 knight, then I could be in trouble. So h4, let's say knight h7, and I don't really want to take on g5, so I'm thinking bishop e5. Bishop e5, rook g8, takes, bishop takes, a4. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to break open the other side of the board. I'm going to play bishop e5. I don't want to... When you're getting attacked, moving pawns in front of your king is the worst thing you can do. Now, if these pawns keep advancing, eventually I'll be able to close down the king side. h4 may have been better, but I was afraid of the knight moving away. Okay, so my opponent didn't play rook g8. That's interesting. So if I go, if h3, g3, I'm not worried. If g4, if a4, g4, b5, g3, takes, takes, h3, This bishop is strong, but... And also the knight's coming to g5. Huh, okay. a4, g4. Well, g4 actually gives me the option to go knight g5. And, well, I can also go bishop f5 now. Bishop f5 seems like a very reasonable move. Because I'm threatening, because g4 isn't playable, neither is h3. So bishop f5, knight g7, bishop c8, queen c8. a4, g4, b5. Okay, let's go a4 first. I don't believe this is gonna work because I'll have knight f4 in the end. I mean, my opponent, unless they move the e6 knight, they definitely don't have enough attacking pieces in play. And if I manage to isolate the c-pawn, or if my opponent takes on b5, then d5 is pretty weak. Okay, what I want to do here? I could play f4. I could play f4. So f4, bishop e5, fe5, knight g4. I can take it unless knight d4 works. f4, gf4, ef4 also seems reasonable. Because unless my opponent moves the rook, the f6 knight is just hanging. Let's just have a look at not playing f4. Let's say b5, bishop e5, d5. No. I want to open up the. I want to open up some files. I want to open up the f file. If my opponent takes, I want to have an open f file. So f4, bishop e5, fe5, knight g4. I'm gonna have to defend somehow. So let's say let's say rook f3. Yeah, okay, I'm playing f4. I like it. And if my opponent takes on f4, then I play ef4, of course. If my opponent plays knight g4 immediately, I'm gonna go queen d2, connect my rooks, defend the e-pawn. Or sorry, if my opponent goes knight g4, I'm just gonna take on h8. Stupid. Okay, let's take. Now, should I go rook f3 or queen d2? Rook f3 or queen d2? I'm thinking rook f3 because that also defends against h3. So rook f3. Rook f3. And yeah, it allows me to double up my rooks. I'm gonna go rook f3. This also blocks the g-pawn, so I'm kind of happy that my opponent played knight g4. Because now if h3, I just go gh3. And so what? Also on h3, I can go queen f1. No, not queen f1 because of hg2. But yeah, gh3 should be fine. I'm really happy now. Okay, my opponent wants to go g4, but I can go queen f1, rook f6. Ooh, that's very scary. I can also go rook f6 immediately. Do I want my queen on f1? Maybe I want my queen on c2. Maybe queen d2. The only slightly worrying thing is that on rook f6 there may be knight g8. So maybe I do play queen f1. Queen f1, g4, rook f6, and there is no knight g8 because of rook takes f7. Yeah, let's go queen f1. I'm gonna keep my rook on the b file so that I can play b5 more efficiently. Also, if the g-pawn moves, I have knight f4. Yeah, I think this is really good for me. I mean, my king is perfectly safe. My opponent's king is ridiculously unsafe. The rook on a8 is out of play. The bishop on c8 is awful. And if the knight ever moves, I may have bishop g6 or e6. Okay. Now, whatever my opponent plays, I just close down the position h3, g3, g3, h3. I have been given access to the f4 square, which is excellent. My knight on e2 wasn't doing much. Especially if the knight moves away from e6, that's going to be deadly. So for now, f7 is undefended, so my opponent doesn't have knight g8, chasing my rook away. If they did, I'd have to watch out for knight g8, because on rook f2 there's g3, and even though I win the pawn, the h file opens. So after hg3, hg3, okay. Moot point, let's close the position down. Now I'm happy, because now there is no way in. Now on knight g8 I just have rook f2. Okay, what does that do? Prepares knight g8, I'm guessing. Wants to go knight f3 check. Knight f3 check. Knight f3 check. So I'm gonna have to run away from that. So if I go knight f4, then there is knight g8. If I go king h1, on knight f3 there is knight g1, so I'm going to do that. King h1. On knight f3, oh, knight f3 there's knight d2. Do I sack the exchange? Maybe. I will definitely have to defend against knight d2 first, so I may play rook b2 and then knight f3. I'm not sure if I want to give up the exchange. Knight f3, rook b2, knight g1, or knight f3, knight g1, knight d2. I don't know, queen f2, knight takes b1, bishop takes b1. Should I give up the exchange? Maybe. I don't think my rook's better than the knight, but I'm kind of reluctant to give up the exchange anyway. Perhaps I could have gone rook d6 as well. Rook d6, I think queen e7 is forced. But yeah, I don't have queen f6 anyway. Okay, my opponent didn't go knight f3. Okay, wants to go knight g8. That much is clear. Wants to go knight g8. So, is there any way for me to put pressure on the knight on g5? So if I go knight g1, preventing knight f3, then knight g8, rook f2, or rook f4. Rook f4 seems okay. I'm gonna go knight g1, because my knight on c3 isn't really in play anyway. I'm gonna prevent knight f3, and on knight g8, I either play rook f4 or rook f2, or even rook d6, but I'm not too sure about that. My king seems safe, because there's really no way to get to the light squares. The only thing I have to figure out is whether on knight g8 I have queen f4. Knight g8, queen f4. Knight takes f6, e takes f6. Wins a piece. But my opponent can play knight g8, queen f4, knight e4, or knight h7. And I really don't have a way to save my rook. So I don't think queen f4 works. I definitely don't want to open up the a file now, unless the e file now, unless I have to. Maybe I don't go rook f4, maybe I go rook f2. But my knight on c3 is kind of necessary to control e4, so I don't think I'll be playing knight e2, f4. So maybe rook f4 is better, because it's more control over f4. Should I be worried about f6? So knight g8, rook f4, f6. Okay. Again, moot point. So is it time for b5? b5, a takes, rook a3. Can I sack my knight? Maybe. Maybe. Ooh, maybe. b5, ab, rook a3, bc, rook c3, rook b7, queen d8 is the only move. Queen d8 is the only move. Maybe bishop b5, king f8. Interesting. I mean, I don't have to sack my knight. I don't have to sack my knight. b5, ab, rook a3, bc, rook c3, rook b7, queen d8. Can I go c7? Rook takes c7. No. So then bishop b5. But then there's rook e3. Okay, let's see if I don't give up my knight. b5, ab, rook a3. Let's say knight e2. But then rook takes d3. Damn. Okay, let's say queen c1, tempo on the rook. The rook moves, I take on c6. Yeah, that seems good. I have queen c1, a tempo, because on knight f3 I can still take. with the rook twice. Well, it's not really a tempo, the queen defense, but still. I'm defending my knight and tying down the queen. Okay, c5. Interesting. I want to go b6, knight b5, knight d6. So b6, c4. b6, c4. Let's say bishop f5. There's knight g8. I can also play rook a1 and just play strategically, claiming that my rook is better than my opponent's rook. My opponent can never castle because of rook takes h6. If they go queen d8, I can take on c5. Okay, so rook a1. Rook a1, queen a1 seems very scary for my opponent. Yeah, I actually like that. I'm gonna go rook a1. Why would I even consider playing b6? Because castling isn't possible because of rook h6. b6 was an interesting idea for knight b5, knight d6, but I think this is stronger. I don't see an easy way to defend unless you go queen d8 or castle or move the rook. And if you move the rook, my rook is just more active on the a file. I mean, I'm not sure I'm gonna take on c5 if queen d8. But but I may take. Because I'm worried about d5, ed5, and then the bishop coming to d5. Sorry, d4, ed4, and then the bishop coming to d5. Because if the bishop does come to d5, I'm gonna lose. Okay. So is it time for b6 now? My opponent wants to take on d4. So let's have a look at b6, cd4, knight b5. b6, cd4, knight b5, that seems to work. Could I do anything less risky? Maybe knight e2, maybe, but I kind of want my knight on an active square on d6. So b6, cd4, knight b5. If d3, then knight d6. Yeah, okay, that seems great to me. I'm gonna do that. That's an excellent square for my knight. And if queen d8, I'm just gonna sack a pawn and go knight b5 anyway. interesting position. I'm getting low on time. I only have 4 minutes left, but it should be enough. I mean, I'll also have knight c7 check. If bishop d7, I can go knight b5. Because if bishop b5 is check. And that seems fine. Also, I can go knight takes d5, but I really don't want to do that. Okay, knight b5. Let's do that. Because if my opponent moves the king, then I take on d4 or take on h6 if castles. If they move the rook to, let's say, c6, then I can play knight d6 followed by rook a8, completely winning. Or even rook a8 just winning, because on rook a8, rook c8, knight d6 wins a piece. Yeah, I like this b6 idea. Okay, now rook d6. Does that work? Rook d6, if rook c6, I go rook a8. And then king g7 may not be good enough. So maybe I just take on d4 now. So ed4, rook c6, rook a8, king g7, rook g8, king g8, rook h6 seems good to me. Yeah, there is no rook c6. Wait, I can actually go knight d6 immediately. Knight d6, rook d6, rook a8. Yeah, okay, I'm going knight d6. Why would I? Maybe my opponent sacks the exchange. Knight d6. Okay, Lichess is going to restart in 9 minutes. That's scary. If knight d6, d4, knight b8, bishop b8, rook a8. That seems very good to me. Because I have e6. Okay, I'm playing knight d6. I don't care about the pawn. I don't think my opponent can play rook c6 because I just win the knight on h6. So once again, if rook c6, rook a8, king g7, rook h8, king h8, rook h6 check, king g7, rook f6 seems good. Okay, so my opponent wants to take the knight and win the rook. I don't think that works though, because my rook on f6 is defended. So now I think it's time to take on d4 and get rid of this pressure. I also need to play quickly. Oh, I love my position. What happens when I play rook a7? Look at my knight. Oof. I just have to remember not to move my queen. Therefore, knight f3 may work. Knight f3, there is rook d6. And but I may have knight g5. Knight f3, rook d6, knight g5, rook c6. There is Rook a8 check. Okay. I don't think knight f3 works. I'm down to 2 minutes. Leeches will restart in 7 minutes. No! How, where did my time go? I had 4 minutes a move ago. Yeah, now my opponent has 2 passive rooks. My rooks are incredibly active. I just cannot lose control. Okay, knight e4. Okay. Okay, I definitely don't want to take. But I may have to take. So, if I do take, I have to keep my bishop on the board. So knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, rook takes. Rook a8 check, king g7. Rook h8. Oh, I don't want to allow that. I don't want to allow that. Can I go knight takes, d takes, bishop c4? Yes. Okay, that seems good. Bishop c4, because the bishop is hanging if rook d4. Let's do that. Does it work? I'm gonna have to see. This is the only thing I'm afraid of. Bishop d5, and this way I'm preventing bishop d5. And there's no way to defend the bishop, because I just play rook takes if my opponent doesn't react. Okay. Can I go d5? Probably not. So bishop takes, pawn takes. Bishop takes, pawn takes. I have to do it. The d pawn is hanging. And I have no idea what to do. I'm gonna activate my knight. Oh, there's knight f5. That's ugly. But I have queen f4. Why am I down to 20 seconds? My god. This definitely hasn't gone as planned. I thought I had a bigger advantage, but I still think I should be better. Yeah. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna try to play actively. Next I'm gonna go knight f4 to try and take on e6, but that seems very scary. And to check on h5. I also have queen c1. Okay. Sorry for not talking. I'm trying to concentrate. Now I'm threatening to take on b7. That's why I did that. If the king had gone to g6, I would have played knight f4. I need to get my king out of here. But maybe I can just pick up all the pawns. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's get my king. Maybe Lichess is restarting. No, Lichess may be restarting. Why am I reconnecting? No. Ooh, okay. Okay. Ooh. Maybe Lichess was restarting at that point. 27 seconds. I just don't want to get mated on the back rank. I tried to make d5 work, but it doesn't work because on rook d5 I don't have rook b7. Oh no. Queen e1 was gonna be mate. I couldn't take on b7. A miscalculation. No. Now I should be better. Because I feel like my b pawn is scary. And I don't think there's knight g3 because I take with the king. Now I'm threatening here and queening. Yeah, or that. Now I'm just gonna queen. Okay, it's over. Oof. Oof. Cool. Okay. Whew. I was getting worried that I'm gonna mess it up in time trouble. Okay. Whew. I think I deserved the win. I think I had a much better position. So a bunch of messages in the chat. Can Stepan see this chat? No, after the game. Oof. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Bishop d3. Okay, so queen a5 is apparently a very rare move, and knight e2 is the most commonly played move. Let's see. Okay, knight e2, yes, I'm happy. Bishop e7 seems passive. I castled. Knight f8. Okay, I should have gone f4 or e4. I played a3, which is still okay. b4 has to be okay. Rook b1 is fine. Knight e6, bishop h4, g5. g5 is okay. That's weird. Bishop e5 is correct. f4. I should have gone f4 immediately, but I played it now, so it's still fine. Okay, yeah, and my opponent shouldn't have played bishop e5. Okay, rook f3. Seems like... Okay, I should have gone e4. Other than that, so far... Okay, but queen f1 is fine. It's a difference. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe you cannot see this. Excuse me. I try to increase the size of this thing while I play because people have been complaining that the names are too small. Okay, now you should be able to see. So e4 was +2. Queen f1 is 1.5. Okay, g4, rook f6, +2.4. Okay, g3... Queen f4. I played king h1 because I wanted to get in knight g1, but wait a minute. Queen f4, knight f3, king h1. Yeah, I guess I can play it on the next move. But isn't queen e7, knight g8 scary? Probably not. Okay, okay, king h1, a blunder. Queen e7, a blunder. Okay. On knight f3, I was gonna go knight g1. Oh, sorry, I was gonna go rook b2 first. Yeah. And then on knight g8, rook f4, and knight g1. Well, it's still fine. How can this be a blunder? Okay. My opponent played queen e7. Wow. Queen f4 winning. Knight g1 better, but not winning. Bishop e6, b5. Okay, why is queen f4 so good? It attacks the knight, but couldn't it just go back? No, it cannot go back. What am I saying? Knight h7, I take on h6. Oh, I'm a moron. Queen g5 just won a pawn because the knight's forced to go to either f3 or e4. Okay, c5. Wow. Okay, b6 was better immediately. Now b6 is good. Takes. Okay, now we're back. This was a good idea. Knight d6. And the thing I was trying to calculate is if rook c6, then rook a8, and I think I just win a piece. I don't even take on h6. Why not? I would have taken on h6. I'm sure. Ah, because I hang my... Okay. Okay, so instead of that, queen f4 was the move. Yeah, queen f4 makes sense. Okay, my opponent played rook d8, and I kept not playing queen f4. Okay, I should have taken with the bishop. Bishop d takes knight e2. Wait, I shouldn't be afraid of bishop d5? That's very, very scary. Yeah, but I have knight f4. Knight f4, bishop c6. I have d5. Okay. Bishop c4. It's still better for me, but... Okay, my opponent should have taken. But now I take, pawn takes, and again, queen f4. I played knight e2. I didn't want to hang my d pawn. Wow. Okay, so many blunders. Finally, queen f4. I mean, the engine recommended this move like 20 times. Rook f6, e f6, king f6, queen e5. On queen g6, on king g6, I was gonna either take on e4 or play knight f4. I'm not sure. Takes here. Okay, I was afraid of mate, so I had taken. Now, if I play queen g4, queen e1 is mate. So I had to defend. Yeah, okay, and my opponent should have, of course, taken on b6, but we were both low on time. And then, yeah, I'm just threatening to queen. He could have prevented it, but yeah, allowing queen f4 check just allows me to promote. This was a very stressful game. Whew. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.